be universally hated by everyone. Well, the hatred began with something completely out of Nickelback's control and was rather related to the opinion held by another popular public figure. In 2003, approximately 8 years after Nickelback was created, a comedian by the name of Brian Posehn would appear on a Comedy Central talk show titled Tough Crowd, during which he would make a joke about bad music making people violent before using Nickelback as an example.
Bad music makes people violent. Like Nickelback makes me want to kill Nickelback.
At the time, the other hosts on the show didn't even know who Nickelback was, yet Brian Posehn continued to reassure them with conviction that the band was truly horrible.
I'm so old, I don't even know who Nickelback is.
I'll have to agree with Nick.
They're not good. They're horrible. Just trust me.
Now, you'd probably assume that this one little comment wasn't enough to make the entire world hate Nickelback, right? Well, the problem was, instead of this comment being a small thing in a relatively obscure episode on Comedy Central, the joke was actually featured in the station's main commercial, which was broadcast to millions for a period of over 6 months. With it, the hatred for Nickelback began to go viral, which was outlined by one user on Reddit who stated, "The joke was on every Tough Crowd promo and nearly all the time. After hearing this joke during every promo for a couple of weeks, I began to hear everyone at my middle school begin to mock Nickelback mercilessly. The worthwhile part of that repetitive commercial was of course the punchline, 'Listening to Nickelback makes me want to kill Nickelback.' The whisper down the lane aspect of the joke telling allowed the origin to slowly disappear until even people unfamiliar with modern music knew there was something detestable about Nickelback. Internet meme culture would then facilitate the hatred in the late noughties and early 2010s.
The only thing I want to hear right now is the sweet sound of this Nickelback CD cracking as I drive over it repeatedly.
With articles such as the 14 most brutal Nickelback memes of all time, featuring bangers such as Still a Better Band Than Nickelback,
Cause we all just wanna be big rock stars and live in hilltop houses driving. I've been wrong, I've been down into the bottom of every bottle. These 5 words in my head scream out, we haven't fun yet.
Stuffed where? Lying paparazzi? A child trafficking ring? These stars almost lost their careers due to big fat lies. Popular and unproblematic celebrities, Keanu Reeves is sort of like the internet's BFF, loved by all for his altruism, unassuming nature, and cohabitation with an age-appropriate woman.
We're all familiar with sad.
I'm just eating a sandwich,
Sad Keanu. It's a sad Keanu meme right there.
Accordingly, he is arguably the least likely celeb to incur accusations of assault. But that's exactly what happened to the star in the late 2000s.
Farian signed them to a production deal. These types of deals were very common in the 80s and 90s. The producer would agree to use their resources to make recordings, and then, when those recordings are released and monetized, the producer would receive a share of the income. The income they receive can be structured in a few different ways. In the case of Frank Farian, as the person funding the project, he would own the master recordings and have the right to transfer ownership or license the recordings to a label. He was also a writer or co-writer of many of the songs he produced, so would also have a sizable chunk of the publishing for the songs. Rob and Fab were given around $4,000 as an advance, and they signed the agreement without fully understanding what they were agreeing to, as they had no legal advice. They were horrified and flatly refused. They wanted to sing, not just dance around and mime. Frank Farian had told them they had signed an agreement that committed them to the project for 3 albums, and they were contractually obliged to do all the promotional work associated with those albums. He said if they wanted out of the deal, all they had to do was repay the advance they had been given, and they would be released from their commitments. The second single from the album was released in April 1989. Don't Forget My Number became their first US #1 hit when it reached the top spot on July the 1st, 1989. It doesn't matter where you are from in the world or what style of music you do, the absolute pinnacle for any recording artist is a #1 record in the USA. To reach that stage in little over a year without touring the country and with only your second single was phenomenal, so naturally, all eyes were on Milli Vanilli now. They had done many shows already over the last year or so and would still go on to do a full European and US tour, but little did they know their next performance would be the one they would be remembered for. On the 21st of July 1989, Milli Vanilli took to the stage for a performance on MTV at a theme park in Bristol, Connecticut. Partway through the performance, the device responsible for playback jammed and kept repeating the line, "Girl, you know it's, girl, you know it's, girl, you know it's," over and over and over.
I wanted to die.
it stopped. Girl, you know it's girl, you know it's girl. 80,000 people. Girl, you know it's girl, you know. I couldn't repeat it 15 times. Girl, it got obvious. So I stopped, I panicked, I ran off stage. Julie Brown, who used to work for MTV, ran after me. I didn't want to go back to stage. I had enough. 80,000 people waiting. I said, I have enough. I quit.
They returned to the stage and completed the set, and the audience barely seemed to notice. Or maybe they did and just didn't care. Either way, the show went on as if nothing unusual had happened. There were, however, many journalists in the audience and watching the broadcast who did notice and did care. The song it knocked off the top spot, Bad English is When I See You Smile, was also penned by Dan Warren. Charles Shaw performed the rap on the first single but was fired shortly after it was released. In December 1989, with Blame It on the Rain still on the top spot on the charts, Charles Shaw made good on his earlier threats. He told New York Newsday writer John Leland that Rob and Fab were imposters who hadn't sung a single note, and he was one of the 3 actual singers on Milli Vanilli's hit debut album. He retracted the statement shortly after, saying it was a publicity stunt to promote his own upcoming release. Frank Farian is reported to have paid $155,000 for the retraction, and Shaw's continued silence.
Top 10 new jobs for Milli Vanilli. Number 10, open law firm of Jacoby Myers, Milli Vanilli. Number 9, camp counselors in Father Flanagan's Pretty Boys Town. Number 8, Jamaican pickpockets in American Express commercial. Number 7, try to sell Bennett.
After failing to sell the real Milli Vanilli and the same music repackaged again as Try and Be, Farian decided he would try to make a Milli Vanilli record with Rob and Fab actually singing. They started work on the album Back in Attack in 1997. Rob was still battling depression and drug addiction throughout the production of the album. He was charged with assault and robbery, for which he was sentenced to 3 months in jail and 6 months of rehab. Farian bailed Rob out of jail and paid for his rehab, and they eventually completed the album. However, on April 2nd, 1998, just prior to the promotional tour for the album, Rob was found dead of a suspected alcohol and prescription drug overdose in his hotel room in Frankfurt. His death was ruled an accident. The album was never released.
And today we're counting down the top 10 worst lip sync fails. Number 10, 50 Cent. Bulletproof vest? Check. Menacing looking entourage? Check. Inability to sing along to your own song? Check.
Load up on drugs, kill your friends as fun as to the she's overjoyed, self-assured, and all I
How far would you go for $1 million? Would you suffer a tarantula bite for $1 million?
If it doesn't kill me.
For $1 million, would you experience childbirth? Yes.
How are we gonna do that?
Would you get an eyeball piercing for $1 million? No.
How does 36% do that?
Would you have every nail ripped off for $1 million? Only if I can eat the toenails after. Would you get shot in a random body part? If it's on my head, then 100% yes.